This is Twit.
The National Security Agency is collecting millions of digital pictures from the internet every day, including thousands of facial recognition quality images. The information is the latest revelation from the Edward Snowden trove of leaked NSA documents, of course, and the pictures are extracted from emails, text messages, social networks, video conferences, and other types of communication. The story also revealed some interesting details, including the fact that the NSA relies in part on facial recognition technology from a company acquired by Google. It's now Google property. It was acquired in 2011, and it's called the Pittsburgh Pattern Recognition, or PitPat. That's the technology used by Google itself for its own facial recognition. The NSA is also using the ability to match harvested snapshots with satellite photos to figure out where the snapshots were taken. In other words, they can, in some cases, look at some picture somebody took, look at what's in the background, and their algorithms will find that location using satellite photography. Really crazy stuff, Joe Panettiere. And of course, this is, these revelations, I think we're starting to have NSA fatigue at some point. These revelations are absolutely mind-blowing. And yet, here we go again. It's another Monday, another massive revelation.
Yeah, good Monday morning. Not only is the NSA watching everything you write, they're also sort of replotting your entire face into a digital system, which is good to know, I guess. You know what? One trend I've noticed in recent weeks is more and more of my friends in the IT community are posting fewer and fewer family-oriented and friends-oriented photos on Facebook. And I think people are starting to get spooked about how these images are going to be used and or archived for all of eternity by government systems.
Absolutely. And the story comes from an exclusive in the New York Times by reporter James Risen. And interestingly, the co-author is documentary filmmaker Laura Poitras. Now, Laura Poitras was the filmmaker who kind of partnered with Glenn Greenwald in these revelations. In fact, she was the one who brought who introduced Edward Snowden to Glenn Greenwald. Even though Greenwald had previous conversations with Snowden, he kind of blew him off and thought he might be a hack and didn't really feel like installing the encryption that Snowden was demanding. But it was Laura Poitras who basically pushed him to interact with Edward Snowden, and so now she's working with the New York Times. If you read the book No Place to Hide by Glenn Greenwald, Laura Poitras was very anti-New York Times, very anti-establishment newspaper media because she didn't trust them. She felt like they kind of always rolled over for the NSA. So here she is with a byline in the New York Times. It's quite an interesting turn of events from a journalism point of view. And of course, we've all seen the famous video interviews of Edward Snowden in that Hong Kong hotel room. Laura Poitras is the person who filmed that. She's the filmmaker who captured that video. So this is really fascinating. And of course, the NSA is not the only organization in the government that's doing face recognition. The FBI has a next-generation identification system that combines automated fingerprint identification with facial imagery and other biometrics, so they can combine all these things together. The State Department has hundreds of millions, of course, of passport photos in their database. An NSA spokeswoman said that the NSA actually has no access to those passport photos, nor do they have access to driver's license photos, which are owned by individual American states. But a program called Wellspring strips out images from email. So the NSA has no access to the State Department's passport photos, but they do have access to everybody's email. And so they harvest email looking for, passport photos. And they can actually recognize whether something is a passport photo or not. And of course, they just skim that off and put it in the database. This is really amazing technology, Joe Panettiere, and I think that, of course, Facebook has face recognition, Google has face recognition, and here the NSA probably has the mother of all face recognition programs because they have, again, the ability to harvest everything.
Yeah, Mike, I also wonder if the, on a far more serious note, if the the Boston Marathon bombings sort of accelerated this last year. Of course, these wheels have been in motion for years. Facial recognition software is not new, but you wonder, as major world events like that happen, how much more quickly our own government is accelerating these efforts.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the thing is, Joe, that is underappreciated, and people don't talk about this enough, and that is that a lot of the surveillance and espionage and a lot of the activity, especially around data harvesting, is a response to the events of 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just keep gathering, we being the U.S. government, massive, massive amounts of information. But it's important to remember that before 9/11, we had information that 9/11 was
Right.
probably going to happen. And the problem was that there was too much information, and that the intelligence agencies were unable to process or cope with the overwhelming amount of information they had pre-9/11. And so the response to 9/11 has been to make ourselves even more overwhelmed by data. I don't know how, of course, facial recognition is something that's relatively automated, but there's so much information being gathered that I tend to wonder whether this actually makes us less effective at preventing, Boston Marathon bombings and 9/11s, simply because we're overwhelming the analysts with information.
Yeah, I guess the phrase we've all turned to in recent years is big data, and I think the mistake a lot of us watching the market and covering the market make is when we say big data, we think about a lot of data, and what I really think we're talking about is different forms of data, different types of data. Can we take structured and unstructured data, look at those pieces of information as individual clues, and then string together the information in a proactive way to prevent things like the Boston Marathon bombing and/or 9/11 in the future? And it's an overwhelming task. I'm thankful I'm not on that side of the fence trying to work those problems. But yeah, it's an overwhelming quandary that we're in at this point.